Okay. Hey everyone. Welcome. We'll wait until this pushes out to all of you. Our email list would have just got an email from our weekly newsletter saying that we're going live with Steve Konkoly tonight. And so thank you for being here. And I'll just say a quick, so Discover Sci-Fi, we have weekly promotions of a wonderful group of authors, and you are the latest author to join our group.
Yes, awesome. Very excited.
Awesome. So did you want to just give a little backstory about, because you must know quite a few of the members of DSF and how that all got started?
Yeah, so yeah, through a variety of different Facebook groups and a couple in particular, like Nick Smith and Nick Webb. I know them pretty well, and I don't think there's an author in the group that I haven't come across at one point or another, all in a good way. So obviously, where I would have gotten the thumbs down. So thank you to everyone.
Yeah, and the caliber of the group just is so incredible. And already, I don't want to mess up my numbers, but your Firestorm just launched, and you've already got over 50 really positive reviews.
Yeah, that's been a fantastic launch. It really has, for a third book, and I did a pre-order, so there's always a lot of decision making that goes into that. Yeah, I really couldn't be happier. It's been awesome.
Awesome. So tell me about Firestorm, book 3 in the series.
Right. So yeah, Firestorm. I think I kind of pulled a fast. I didn't pull a fast one on everyone, but I don't like to make it too easy for my readers, so that might turn some people off. So maybe I should rephrase that. No, I definitely keep things going, but not always in a purely linear fashion. I have the story arc, so I definitely kind of change things up in Firestorm. So the whole series is about a bioweapons release on U.S. soil in multiple cities, and kind of a really on the ground look at it from like normal people's perspectives, like a police officer, kind of a yuppie-ish couple, an emergency room doctor, and then there's some more I would consider to be the plants, a guy who studies bioweapons or things close to it, and how their stories all kind of merge together. So I follow that, and it's a kind of almost a zombie-ish. People are very aggressive, and they're trying to survive, and there's a greater conspiracy at play. And in book 3, I kind of removed. I don't think it's a secret anymore. You don't see an infected person in the entire story, but there's no decrease in the action level or the tension and the suspense, and there's some horror aspects. It just shows that you don't have to be infected or crazy, as they're kind of start to be called in the book, to be an enemy, or to be someone who's a major threat. So yeah, it's so readers are kind of like, there's not an infected person in the whole book. What did you do? And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, but it's a different kind of fight. So I think it's been well received, and like I said, I'm really excited about it.
Awesome. So just before we go into that a little bit more, thank you for those of you who've joined in. If you like and comment and share, you'll get an entry into a draw for either a ebook copy or a signed paperback of one of the 3 books in the ZULU Virus Chronicles. So like and comment and share, and you'll get an entry. So tell me, so this is obviously, when I was reading the reviews of this series, people were kind of really going on and on about how it's nonstop action and you really bring the readers on a ride. Where does this all come from? What's not, well, I guess on one side, the inspiration, on the other side, how you get that across?
Yeah, so it's funny. The Zulu virus, the name of that disease, is actually taken from one of my other series. I would say my only non sci-fi, post-apocalyptic related series. It's more of a covert ops thriller, but the team in that book spends pretty much actually four of the 5 novels hunting down the various groups that have been trying to release it and get it released across the world and in the United States. So this is kind of a parallel universe for me, although it's kind of turned out like it could be like an unintended sequel to that other series. But a lot of readers wanted to, like, they were like, maybe I should have them examined, report them. They're like, oh, I really want to see what would happen if this was released in the U.S. And I'm like, it just didn't fit in that series. It was just a whole different kind of story that I didn't want to tell at that point. But I really kind of warmed up to the idea after I finished off a couple other books and thought, this actually would be a very interesting story, and telling it from more of a regular person's perspective, and then drawing in these kind of special operators and different kinds of like more elite groups, scientists and things. So there's regular people who have nothing to do with anything, mixed in with ex-Navy SEAL and like I said, a bioweapons scientists, and they're all working together to survive and actually try to solve the problem.
And does it switch perspective each chapter, or how do you weave those stories together?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I always change by chapter. Like,
Okay.
I never do any like they call head hopping. So what that does, it's not a unique style. It's definitely not like something I invented, but I'll tell, I'll show a scene, and it could be told from multiple points of view, not like rehashing the entire scene, but maybe like the last 80% told from another perspective, and there's hints and clues. So someone 2 blocks over who hears a firefight or hears something and runs toward it, gets caught up in the absolute mess that's going on, or they avoid it and just kind of narrowly escape it, not even realizing they did it. And I love to do that multiple points of view. I used to do it inside each chapter, but I'd separate it by asterisks, but I think it just got a little messy.
Okay.
So I don't do that anymore. I really try to focus on breaking it up by chapter and letting everyone see it.
And when you're writing one of those scenes, are you already imagining a different character and their perspective, or does that come after?
I do. It's I'm really trying to think like how other people would be impacted, how other characters, nearby would be impacted by it. So yes, I do. And sometimes it's someone sitting in a sensor, like eavesdropping. I've done scenes like that where a surveillance team, that's which I think is pretty cool. So something goes down, and the I would say the team that takes down like a room, or takes down like a listening post. They turn off they manage to destroy all the surveillance, or shut it down, and then the group that's watching kind of takes these kind of cues that they wouldn't expect, and you kind of experience it from that perspective.
Okay, very interesting. Yeah, so sorry, just to cut in, Michelle Hermanson says hi from Arizona. And Jen says, I read the first 2 in the series over Christmas break and ended up reading the Black Flag series while waiting for this release. I love the link between the 2.
Yeah.
And she says, keep writing though, and I'm out of books and it's horrible.
Sorry.
So we'll jump just forward a bit and we'll come back, but do you have something else? What's in the pipeline right now?
So right now, I'm kind of stuck in I'm not stuck in a contract, make it sound like a bad thing. But I am contracted to write 2 books this year for Thomas and Mercer, Amazon imprint. And these are really kind of pretty straight thrillers. So, unfortunately, I wish I could report I have a bevy of post-apocalyptic books coming out. But in between those, I'm going to either write another Fractured State book, which is kind of a near future dystopian tech thriller, or I will do another ZULU virus book. I'm tending toward the ZULU virus just because it's hot in my head, and I think it would be easier to do, but I would also like to close up the Fractured State series because it is a defined trilogy, and it's going to stay that way. So the rest of my series, I have no idea. The Persea Collapse books were a trilogy for a year and a half until the 4th book came out. So yeah.
So the books that you are contractually obligated to do, will you do those first, or do you write in tandem, or what does your process look like?
No, I can't write in tandem. I know some people do, but I don't. So we're going to work on that now, and then during the summer, I will, from May until September, I have that time. And summers are pretty busy anyway, so I don't, I don't expect to get much done because I never do. I really just don't. But that's when I will write this other book, and then I'll do the other one in the fall. So 2019, I'll be free and clear to do whatever, beyond that.
Jen says, clone yourself and write both. I need closure.
Yes. Yeah, I'm working on it.
Yeah. So you said that you wrote Firestorm from the perspective of a yuppie couple, like civilians, and more like scientists. Where do you talk to actual people in these positions, or do you make it up?
I don't. I've written so much about the bioweapons. I really leaned heavily on the research I'd done for my first book, The Jakarta Pandemic, which was more of that is just like a flu virus. But I did a lot of work and a lot of background research into the Black Flag books and creating the Zulu virus. So that groundwork was already there and available to me. And I worked as a pharmaceutical rep for a number of years. So, I called on an emergency room physician. So, it was pretty easy to kind of rehash that. I do have to look things up to see, how logically when they would still be in a residency or, that kind of thing. But, as far as being a yuppie, that's what we are. So.
Speak for yourself. No. Well, your Amazon bio. Oh, sorry, for people who are just tuning in, thank you for being here. If you like, you'll get an entry for liking, one for commenting, and one for sharing into a draw for a free copy of one of Steve's Zulu Virus Chronicle books, either the signed paperback or the Kindle version. Yep. So make sure you engage with this video. And Kurt says, best yuppie pharmaceutical rep ever.
Is that Kurt? I know him.
Okay. So you graduated from the United States Naval Academy in 1993, and right. You did a Bachelor of... How do you get a Bachelor of Science in English Literature?
Don't even ask. Everyone there gets a Bachelor of Science. So
Okay.
Right. So I took Shakespeare and, the romantic writers right next to electrical engineering and, weapons theory and weapons engineering. So it was kind of a very interesting undergraduate degree.
Yeah.
I think I took about the least amount of English classes you could possibly take to get an actual literature degree, but somehow I did get it in there some way.
And now, so you do this full time. You're a full time writer.
Yep.
So
yep.
Full circle. Did you imagine that happening, or?
Never. No, I took a creative writing course at the Naval Academy, and that's only because I knew it would be easy. It was like it was exciting.
Don't tell the English majors right now. They're working hard.
Yeah, I know they are. Probably not. It was accessible to me as an English major, and I'd heard that it was a pretty easy class. Although I did end up getting like a B in it, but it was most of my English grades were B's. So I wasn't the best English major. So this was not a lifelong dream coming true. I started writing later in life. And yeah, actually, I think when I started in like 2010 or 11, or a little earlier. My first book came out in 2010. I self-published it, and 2013 is when I was able to, quit the day job and do this full time. Yeah.
Okay. So what were you doing? What was the day job?
Pharmaceutical sales.
Okay. Yeah. And before that, you were on active duty in Japan?
Yeah, all over the place. Yeah. So I started my first real post after a couple years of training was on a ship based out of Japan, a small frigate.
Okay.
So, and I was, really a junior officer, which is like a jack of all trades. You get thrown around everywhere. You kind of do everything. So I spent 2 years out there, traveled the world in that area, deployed to the Gulf once. And then when I came back, I went to Camp Pendleton. I'd always wanted to do something a little different than ships. I kind of, I'm not going to go into the long story of how I ended up on a ship out of Japan, but it's a good story over a couple beers.
Next time.
Yeah. So I wanted to do something with the Marines. That was something that had always interested me in school. So I took a job as a liaison officer with 1st Marine Corps Division out of Camp Pendleton, and a small group that no one that had ever heard of called Anglico, which is a naval gunfire liaison company. So we were attached to Marine and Allied units and would help them with fire support. So dropping anything that blew up, we would help them manage, and it's kind of like a fancy forward observer unit. So, and then after that, I went and taught the same thing in a schoolhouse down in Coronado. So it was it was a nice, real nice 8-year run, and I just wanted to get out after that because I was facing a lot of deployments. So I got out right before 9/11. So I kind of, had some pretty uncanny good timing with that.
And why pharmaceuticals?
Because my neighbor talked me into it. Basically, I wish I could say there was a a larger calling, but I had never even considered the job before, or that type of job. My wife had known a pharmaceutical rep, and based on talking with them, said it was a great life. It's not, it's not a, I don't know if Kurt's still listening. It's not a, it's not a very stressful job. It pays well, great benefits. The companies treat you well. And that turned out to be absolutely true. It was a great, 12 years. It just, it was definitely time to move on. I, got to the point where I wanted to spend way more time writing than I was, than doing my job. And that's a problem.
And what was the first book you wrote?
The first book is The Jakarta Pandemic. And that was, so it's more of a suspense thriller about a very deadly flu virus. And it tells a story of a Marine veteran who was a pharmaceutical rep. So you can see I didn't go too far out of my comfort zone with that book, who lived in Maine, where I lived at the time.
Yeah.
And how he dealt with it on a personal level, like just with his family and keeping his family safe. So there was no running around solving conspiracies or, fighting to find the virus vaccine. It was just really kind of a claustrophobic horror sort of suspense story about how a neighborhood essentially implodes, on this guy and how he deals with it. So
okay. That's interesting because I haven't spoken to all 12 DSFers at length, but the ones I have spoken to, their first books that they published no longer exist, at least in the form that it was first published in. Bobby Adair, I spoke with him last week, and he said that his first book sold 13 copies, and it's morphed into something else. But your Jakarta Pandemic, it's the same as the day you published it, or?
I wouldn't say that. It was, I can tell you, it was an ugly beast when I published this book. I worked on it for a year and a half, 2 years, sporadically, and then finally started digging into it, like really gaining momentum. It was 180,000 words, which is a pretty long book.
Whoa, yeah.
So there was a lot of rambling, a lot of pieces and parts that didn't need to be in there, honestly. And so, as a new writer, and as an indie, that was, I was just learning. And it was just that 2010 was when a lot of good guidance was starting to come out on how to make yourself, my first cover looked, I would be embarrassed to even show it right now. But that was the first.
We got to start somewhere.
We do, yeah. So, the book has been edited and re-edited. It went through heavy edits probably over the next 2 or 3 years, over feedback. So it's the same story, and it's, it has all the same reviews, and it's the same book, but, if I wrote that book today, it would be very, very different. But I'm glad I did. It's, it's still, people really love the story. So, I think it's kind of stood that test of time.
Okay. And how did you press the publish button and just cross your fingers, or what was your?
It was an interesting decision. It's I was torn. There were a lot of blogs and posts like Joe Conrath, talking about self-publishing, and I looked at the query, the whole agent query, publishing thing for I think about a week, and I'm like an extremely almost pathologically practical person, or can be, and I just looked at it and I'm like, man, it's just the odds are just so far, so they're really stacked against you, in terms of that world, and I just didn't believe what they were saying, that self-publishing would destroy your career, or no publisher would ever touch you. And I said, I just want the story to get into people's hands, if anything, my hands, other than on my computer, so I did the Create Space thing. I did the Kindle Direct. I think I actually put it on Nook at the time. That was the only other platform out there. And just hit publish, and it sold a little in December. I think every friend and relative I could convince. And then oddly enough, in January, it just started selling, and it kept going and going. And until I was convinced, I'm like, wow, I didn't waste my time. Not that I felt like I wasted my time, but it's a lot. It's a big time investment to write a book, and especially when you don't know what you're doing. It's even longer. So kind of like, I'm like, wow, this actually works, and people like it and read it and review it, and it felt good. And I started working on the second one, and then that one sold. And by the third one, I was like, I actually might be able to make a living doing this, I think. And by the fourth book or fifth book, that's when I was there. For months I had kind of replaced my income, and I'm like, wow, I'm like, I don't know what's holding me back, from this other than not wanting to quit my job, So that was really the big obstacle, was just saying, I'm out.
Yeah. And you said it took 2 years.
Um, let's say 2010. So really like 2.5, 3 years, I would say, to be fair. Yeah.
And were you pulling the trigger? Was it just because you thought that you needed a job, or you didn't think, you thought it was a bubble, or what was holding you back?
No, I mean, the pulling the trigger was really kind of, I was not into my day job at all. I mean, not even close to it. And, I was barely working. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it's just, and, in pharmaceutical sales, you can kind of get away with that because you're on your own. So it just wasn't, it got to the point where I'm like, this is ridiculous to continue doing this. So, and I had, like I said, replaced the income, from that. So I'm like, it was kind of an impulsive decision that had been based on like multiple discussions with my wife and myself over, driving hours and hours in Maine, I'm quitting this job. That's it. I'm like, one more thing and I'm done, and it was just like one more thing, like at a lunch I had, or I'm like, all right, that's it. Can't stand this anymore. I'm not doing it. So, yeah, it was kind of a funny way to transition. My wife was not happy at all about it. Yeah, she's like, you know, you got two great sources of income coming in right now. I can't believe you did that. I'm like, it's it's just to be able to pursue your passion. I really do believe like success comes from that, and it's not like I took a big leap of faith. I mean, it was a leap, but having replaced my income, it was I kind of was jumping into a pretty safe pool.
Yeah.
Although my sales tanked, like 2 weeks after that, they like just went like a stock market crash. I never told my wife. I told her later, like 2-3 years later, when it wouldn't trigger any kind of PTSD for her. But yeah, it was kind of an interesting ride. And then they picked back up as I put out the next book, and it took off ever since. So kind of
yeah,
fun.
Kurt, he says nobody ever says I want to grow up and be a pharmaceutical rep.
They should though.
Well, yeah, my question is, so you were working in the day, like a 9 to 5, I'm guessing, sort of thing.
Yeah, 9 to 10. I'm kidding. No, I'm joking. Don't laugh, Kurt. No, I'm kidding. No, I mean, it was a very flexible schedule.
Yeah. And so you'd work whatever hours it was. Then would you spend every other waking moment writing, or your weekends, or?
After so the first book took me forever, and the second book, it was about a year it took me to write. And I'm trying to think. I still didn't feel like it took me too long. I mean, honestly, and there was a point about halfway through that book where I said, if I'm going to get this book out in any time under the next 2 years, I'm going to have to come up with some kind of schedule. So I actually, for the next, actually well past when I quit my day job, I got up at 4 a.m, religiously, and wrote for 2-3 hours, and then headed out, and did the pharmaceutical job. And then, I would write on weekends. I'd write in the car in between calls, like if I didn't have a lunch or some kind of an appointment, I would just be in the car writing. But it was really that 4 to 6:37 until my kids were in elementary school. So, it was about time when they were getting up and out and having to help out, make that happen. So yeah, that was really kind of formed the core of like, my second, third, fourth book and fifth book. Yeah. And then, it carried on, and it just slowly died off. So I do not get up at 4 a.m.
You've earned it. You've earned
weekends, because it became such a habit. And it was a great thing because even on weekends, I could get stuff done and not have it impact family time and hang out. So that's one of the biggest pieces of advice that I give to anyone that wants it about writing is, especially part-time, is carving out, whatever time works for you. Some people love to write at night. I cannot. 10 o'clock rolls by and I am just absolutely, I'm through. I can watch TV and that's about it. Or stare at the sky. Those are the extent of my activities at night. So yeah, you kind of have to know yourself with that.
Yes, exactly. So anyone who's just joining in now, thank you for joining in. We're interviewing Steve Konkoly, who just joined Discover Sci-Fi. And if you like or comment or share, you'll get an entry to win one of either a signed copy or a Kindle copy of one of his ZULU virus chronicles book.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions about that series as well, this is the dude to ask. So put it in, put it in the comments. And so about, again, the main thing that I read is that it's just nonstop action. And you started on book 1, and you said there's no like zombie-ish characters in the third one, but did it start with that sort of
It did.
situation?
So yeah, so as the virus kind of continues to ravage people's, yeah, it's kind of a modification of, I mean, there I took a lot of liberties. This is, it is
You're a writer.
fiction, but it's a disease that kind of impacts the temporal lobe. It's kind of that typical-ish virus that eats away at the brain and gets rid of inhibitions and that, but a little bit different. But in a very small subset of the population, it causes them to just kind of get be very angry and just lose all inhibitions and go run on rampage. So I'm like I always do statistics and math. So I'm not sure. Indianapolis, I took the number of people in Indianapolis, ran my percentages, even small ones, and I'm like, that would leave you with a lot of people on the streets who are willing to just go absolutely haywire and do all things. So that's kind of the buildup. And so the police officer, his son, he's divorced, his wife is missing, his son's at home, and he's being asked to fill shift after shift at his job. And he just got back from a vacation, and he goes out and almost gets killed and decides that I just need to go home. So he goes home, and they decide to walk out. This couple, the same thing. They're in Indianapolis, a little further away, and their neighborhood is just descending into chaos. Gunshots and people running around, and they decide to leave and unfortunately lose their car and have to keep walking. So all these characters kind of meet up outside of this bioscientist who works in Indianapolis, who's in his house, kind of trying to figure out what's going on. And yeah, so it's it is kind of it's more of a slow build in the first book. It's a build up to action, but when the action hits, it's it is definitely nonstop. And when they get into the city, it's just absolutely insane what they face. And book 2 has the vast majority of like the street crazy, just everything completely out of control that they have to navigate to do certain things. So it's I had a lot of fun with that, but it gets tiring. I'm telling you, I know I feel bad for readers because I'm like, they must be like exhausted when they finish reading these, because you just never you finish with the infected people, and then there's this government, this conspiracy group that's like lurking nearby, and like you don't get a break. So that's why I need a long rest. Yeah, they probably do. But I like a long rest between books. I don't go from one to another. I need a break personally.
Yeah. Sorry, just John says he's not familiar with your books, but after a quick Google search, these look to be just my thing. Which book in your catalog should he start with?
Well, I would throw it back at John. Like, what kind of stuff does he like?
We'll see if he's listening. And Chuck says, way to go, Steven. That's probably a general comment. So you're done writing a book, you feel exhausted. How much time do you take before you start the next one?
I'm terrible. I'm like, I really should take like a few days or a week and then jump into the next one. But there's a lot of prep with launching and releasing books, and I'm always working on such a ridiculously tight timeline because I don't manage my schedules very well. I mean, it's not because I have them timed so tight. I mean, maybe I do, but I just always fall behind schedule. Family stuff, I never say no to anything. So it just kind of keeps going. I'm always like just rushing it off to my editor, proofer, and just getting it back from my formatter before release. So I feel like I'm always just so busy with that stuff. But I do putz around. So like I've probably finished this book in, 2 weeks, a week and a half, 2 weeks before I launched it. And I'm just now getting into the next one, where I'm actually getting into some good writing, good stuff with it. So, yeah, it could be anywhere from 2 weeks to sometimes a month. In the summer, it'll be a month. Trust me. 2 months, maybe even 3. It kind of goes on and on.
Because you have kids, are they still school age?
They're high school age.
High school. Yeah. So will you go on vacation, or are you just going to stick around home?
We do. So like in the summer, we travel a lot in the summer, and we try to go somewhere in the spring as well. But yeah, the summer we're just always out and about. Always, it's like all these little trips, and and we do a big trip. So it's just not the most productive time for me. And it's nice out. I write in a screen porch, usually in the summer. I at least 3 or 4 hours out there, and it's actually
lovely.
Yeah, it's great, but it's like hot. It gets hot in Indiana. Indianapolis is I guess I forgot. I grew up in Northwest Indiana, but it's ghastly in the summer. It can be pretty sticky. So I go back and forth between the air conditioning back outside because I just want to be out there.
Yeah.
But I just find that with the kids running around the house and everything going on, it's just not a good focus time. I'm about half as productive as I could and should be.
So you said you have a proofreader and an editor.
Yeah.
What does your team look like, or is it just you otherwise?
So what I've been doing over the last couple of years is, and like I said, because of this compacted timeline that I kind of kill myself with, I have an advanced reader team. I feel bad because I don't really give it to them that early, maybe a week or two, which is cool. And I get some great feedback, and they catch things in time for me to kind of change those. My wife reads it as well. So she usually reads as we're going. So she really kind of does big course corrections for me. If I'm really missing, missing a perspective or need to add chapters, she's been super helpful with that. So with her, that's before it goes off to the copy editor. And, my copy editor and proofer, they kind of smooth it out. I write pretty clean. I say that, and it may sound like kind of like arrogant. Believe me, I still have 1,000 changes in there, but it's all really small stuff. Like in terms of like sentence, I'm not one of these people that just like vomits onto the keyboard or whatever they call it, vomit on the screen and just go. I can't. I'm like a 500, maybe 1,000 to 2,000 words a day person when I'm not like crunched. And I've done 5 or 6 a day, or 40,000 in like 10 days, because I've had a deadline issue.
Yeah.
So, and those are good. I mean, I actually feel good when I do it, but I can't keep that up. And usually 15 to 2,000 is my usual. And that's because I go over it, and then the next day I start and I rework things. So I probably could go a lot faster if I just kind of let things kind of lie where they are. And I do a lot of research is another thing. My wife, I probably over research things. A lot of stuff doesn't end up in the books, but they kind of form that background, that kind of web, that I, even if it doesn't make it into the book, it's shaping the story that way. And I like watching YouTube videos too. So
procrastination with a purpose.
Yeah. It's research,
So we have a couple characters, a couple questions that came in.
Okay.
Jen asks, how do you become an advanced reader of your books?
Yeah, let's see. If you send me an email, I would, we can kind of chat a little bit, and then we can do that. So if you send it to stevekonkoly@gmail.com and introduce yourself, I would definitely, if this is something you like to do and have done, even if you haven't done it, I'm always looking for more readers.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And Chuck says that you have a great way of ramping up the adrenaline in your books.
Yeah.
That's been a great theme.
That's cool. Thank you. Yeah, it's good to hear,
Yeah. And not to shameless plug, but Firestorm just came out. You should go get it if you're listening to this. And if you haven't started that series, book 1 is called Hot Zone. Go get it on Amazon.
Yeah, and they're 99 cents right now. Yeah, both Hot Zone and Firestorm or Killbox. So I come up with these kind of cool names that everyone messes up, and my wife looks at me funny. Hot Zone's kind of that makes sense, but Killbox, she's like, "Are you sure about that one?" I'm like, "Yeah, it actually has it's a military application and a real thing, which makes perfect sense in the story. It was, it's by design, and same with Firestorm as well." So,
well, it's that depth. It's very important, and people will pick that up. And if anyone wants to win a free copy of one of the books in this series, you can like, comment, and share this video.
Please.
And there's another question from Kurt. He says, "What is your favorite book that you've written?"
Ooh, that's a tough one. Thanks, Kurt. You had to stump me with that, didn't you? You do that to me. I don't know. You know what? I really like the Fractured State series, and the reason I would say it might be my favorite series is really just because of the world building I did for it. it's set 20 years in the future from today, and it's based in California. That's kind of become a Big Brother state. It's dealing with the water drought kind of effectively. It's there's a lot of things going on there. The rest of the country is a bit of a mess. There's a massive the new Dust Bowl, and all the cities across the country are crowded. And California is kind of its own country, although it hasn't separated. And that's the big issue in the book, is a secession question. And the conspiracy that takes place in the book and the action is all kind of surrounding the different groups vying for that kind of control. But it's told from the perspective of someone on the ground, a water reclamation engineer. So this is the guy that's squeezing all the water he can out of the toilet, out of the out of our way. That's just his boring kind of like humdrum job, and he gets really wrapped into an incredible conspiracy that takes him and his family and other players on a crazy journey. But just coming up with the world, near future technology, making things that are different enough and cool, in a way, but not unfamiliar. That was a real challenge. I spent a number of months just coming up with that, and the fake timeline that no one actually ever saw, but gets referenced here and there. This whole here's what happened in the country and the world, and I'm like, no one ever sees that stuff. But I just had a blast with it. So and I love all the books, but those because of that, I have to say that's I really enjoy going back and reading those.
And might be too much of a personal question, but do you prepare in your real life? Do you think about these things?
Yeah.
And do you prepare? Yeah.
Yeah. So, so the Jakarta pandemic was really considered like a prepper book, survivalist book. And I had never heard the term prior to that. I'd written it, and, the situation that I put the character in, he had to really be, quarantining yourself for months on end, for a first wave of a virus and the second wave, and keeping your family quarantined, it essentially requires you to do that.
Yeah.
So I kind of conjured and came up with all the stuff that he did. And that's really kind of how that book took off. It started being read and passed around and promoted within these survival prepper readiness circles, and then it became more mainstream. But that's really kind of where it got its start. So when I 4 or 5 books later, I started a new series, and I kind of designed it with that in mind. And that first book did impact the way I kind of looked at things. I had never really thought too hard about the impact of an event like that. So without giving away the farm here, yeah, it definitely has kind of shaped the way I look at things. And I've actually, this is not everyone knows this, but I did co-write a book with a guy that does this. He's a consultant for this, kind of readiness kind of, mindset, and very, very even-keeled guy. We get along great. And he proposed this, in conjunction with the books. And I'm like, sure, it's kind of like, we call it, it's practical prepping, no apocalypse required. So the whole thing, yeah, it's kind of like my sense, my sense of humor and kind of lightheartedness, and, combined with his, expertise. And we just talk about all the different ways to kind of prepare for basic stuff, not, like I said, no North Korean paratroopers coming down from the sky, no EMPs or, big things like that. Just, really kind of, what could happen to you, tornado or, just a power outage, really. So, yeah. Long answer to your quick question. Yes.
This is really interesting. We should have another interview like this and just talk about those questions, because we've got some good comments, and I think people already knew the answer to that question and are interested in discussing it.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they're always trying to get a look in the bunker, and I tell them,
you have a bunker?
No. Well, the character in the Jakarta pandemic did, and it was very extensive. And people are always like, do you have a bunker that looks like that? And I'm like, I'm not going to tell you whether I do or not, but
or where it is, or
I'll just tell you, you would be very disappointed. People would come around and go, really? Huh, okay.
Yeah, Kurt says you were definitely the main character in Jakarta. Ashlyn says, I love how you add military flavor to all your books.
Yeah.
And lots of, Nicholas Sansbury Smith says, what's the biggest piece of advice you can give to preppers on that topic?
To preppers, I would say just keep it real. I mean, really don't just take it one step at a time and prepare for the thing most likely to happen to you. I mean, really being realistic. Like, so I live in like when I lived in Maine, the most catastrophic thing that realistically would happen up there was like a major winter storm. Like they call them, nor'east. I'm not, nor'easters up there. I don't have the Boston accent down at all. But that was it, and in years past, it knocked power out for a week or two, and that gets pretty dicey, when you're dealing with storms and ice and, the inability to travel. So, that was my thing there. Here in the Midwest, tornado is kind of like, power outages as well. I mean, those are the things that I think if you focus on that and not on the end of the world scenario, having to, you know what I mean? It's, I mean,
you drive yourself crazy.
Yeah, you drive yourself crazy and you don't live your life. I mean, preparing for the collapse of society. I mean, you can do that, or you can go on vacation to, Mexico with your family, or you can, that's what I talk about in the book is, allocating your resources and your mindset and your sanity, in directions that, kind of make sense.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. Lots of recommendations for the ZULU virus series. Awesome. And like we just mentioned, books 1 and 2 are 99 cents on Amazon. Book 3 just came out. Pardon me?
I said it's an easy way to jump in.
It's an easy way to jump in. And we have on discoversci-fi.com / weekly deals. You can see all of the deals of the week. I'll post that the link in the comments after this.
Great.
Jim Knott says Nicholas Sansbury Smith's Tracker series Rock 2. He and Steve are 2 of my favorites.
Yeah, Nick and I have been, I would say thick as thieves for a while now. I absolutely love his series, the Tracker series. He takes a totally different, in my view, like a totally different kind of approach, a very fresh look at what I kind of called like not a stale genre, but it was very refreshing to find his books and get to know Nick and what he's writing. So I agree.
Yeah. And it's awesome that you guys are on part of Discover Sci-Fi.
Yes, yeah. You
guys are both amazing writers, and Nick is a great supporter coming on here and adding his 2 cents. So thank you, Nick. And Kurt says you have a bunker. So we'll probably wrap up shortly. Do you have anything to add about Firestorm or what you want your readers to know?
Yeah, well, I mean, I just, really quickly, I could, just do a very quick recap. I think we've talked about, the Firestorm books. It's about a bioweapons release, unintentional or intentional. It's up for the reader to decide. But I think by now you kind of figured out it was intentional. So it's, it's a great, tech, I would say tech thriller, post-apocalyptic, look at what could happen if something like that happened. The Fractured State books, I describe those as near future dystopian, kind of California with a capital K, or however you want to put it, a possible secession. So it's an interesting book. And I would say the true first post-apocalyptic series that I wrote outside of the Jakarta pandemic was the Perseid Collapse series. So this takes the characters from the Jakarta pandemic, the Fletchers and their neighborhood friends, the people that survived and kind of were their buddies during that whole story, and puts them in a completely new scenario, involving like an attack attack by China. There's a lot going on in that book, and it kind of looks at how they deal with an absolutely catastrophic situation, and like I said, I pretty much take everything away from them. So they have all this stuff, they've learned from the Jakarta pandemic, that you have to, these are the things you have to have, and you really do need to do and focus on. And I'll just let readers know, I just yank that out from under them very quickly in the book. So it's a great series. It spans, it's very military, it's military intensive as well. I love writing military characters and how they interact, and the real dilemmas they face, and doing, following orders that may, kind of, be questionable to them, and not exactly, seem like to be in the best interest, of the public. And it really kind of it hits all those notes, and it's fully action packed too. It's, you won't get a rest. Sorry, no one's getting. There's no downtime in my books. So that's it.
Awesome. And we just had 3 more questions while
Okay.
you were talking, if you have time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tommy says, who would you have play Alex Fletcher in a movie?
Ah, boy, I think I'll go with like, in the past, people had asked that, and I think is it Eric Bana? Does he make sense? He might be a little too old now, but if you heard that, he'd probably be upset I said that.
We won't tell him.
I would think it would have to be someone who looked, it would definitely not be one of these like, George Clooney, type, dimple chin guys. I think it would just have to be kind of a more of a regular,
Like a Mark Wahlberg type.
yeah, someone like I guess that could work. I would almost think like someone who's not too well known, who could pull that off. Because it's like I said, it's a very claustrophobic role where, it really just kind of delves into that one group. Thanks, Tommy.
Yeah. So any up and coming actors, please send your audition tape.
Yes.
Add it to the comments here. Steve's gonna watch it.
Right.
And he'll make a decision.
I can just tell you right now, you're hired if you have a
okay, so Bill says, did you already answer if you're going to do another dedicated Black Flag book?
Yes. So this is why I don't give my like address or anything out, because like I would probably already be in a situation, I would probably already be like tied to a bed somewhere, one of my feet or both of my feet completely broken, at a typewriter. Because between 2013 was the 4th Black Flag book. It took me, I hate to even say it, I think February 2017 was the 5th book. And like I promise the 6th book is not going to take that long, but it's not probably going to happen this summer. So I'll just leave it at that. I'm not making any more promises. I released that book on my blog and Facebook like 8 times over, like, oh, it's definitely coming August of 2015. September 2000, yeah.
The build up.
Yeah, like you keep saying this is coming out and I'm not seeing it. I'm like, yeah. But there will be one more. I have that story has a nice tidy wrap up.
Awesome. And something to look forward to. And it sounds like you have a nice long full career ahead of you. So take your time. We will be waiting.
Hopefully.
And will you ever write a zombie apocalypse book from G. Michael Hoff?
Hey Jeff, I kind of dabbled in it with this with the Zulu virus. So I think if I did, I definitely enjoy. I could definitely do it. I mean, I enjoyed that. I mean, honestly, at certain points in that book, there's no difference. I mean, between what you would consider to be like a zombie apocalypse, and the Zulu virus is named. That's why it's this, called Zulu, for zombie. So, yeah, I could see doing it, but I think I would wait. I would actually wait until like everything kind of died down and people got the zombie thing out of their system. Now, the hardcore zombie. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, so it's not out of the question, Jeff.
Kurt says that Ed Norton should be and Alex Fletcher and Nick Cage. I don't know if I agree with that one. I'm not a huge Nicolas Cage fan, but
yeah, I don't know. Maybe back in the day, I don't know what he looks like now. Every time I see him, he looks a little rough. So,
and one more question. AR Shaw says, what would be the most plausible catalyst for an apocalypse?
I think I tend to write about like this pandemic, virus type stuff. Yeah, I think, I don't know. I mean, my mind kind of changes. I mean, I think there's a lot of instability in the world. So, I mean, I could see something. I could definitely see some kind of not a societal collapse. That kind of implies that the society itself is going to implode because of for whatever reason. But I could see something happening. Not necessarily an attack, but something destabilizing the world and causing food shortages, panic, and things like that. I mean, it could be like stock market runs and stuff. And it doesn't take that much to get people pretty riled up and panic. So I think that that's a possibility. And the pandemic thing, the virus thing is always a possibility. Not necessarily man-made or inflicted like a bioweapon, but it's always there and it's happened in the past. And statistically and historically, we're potentially due for another one.
Well, AR, who asked the question, I think she already, or he or she, I can't see the picture small, had an answer, and she said asteroids. So it was a bit of a leading question.
Yeah, I mean, it's statistically possible too, and that that's why I did include, that is in one of my books does have that kind of an issue. So there's anything can happen at any time, really. Yeah. I don't think about the asteroids.
No.
We always have these near misses.
Be.
Yeah, the near miss. Yeah, I know. That's one of those like, yeah, if it happens, I'll be vaporized and that's it. Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, anyone who's still watching, who wants to win either a Kindle copy or a signed paperback of one of your Zulu Virus Chronicles books, just like, comment, or share this video.
Cool.
And I'll just wrap up quickly by saying did I lose my page? Of course. Sorry, everyone. That was so smooth until I was just going to say our weekly deals. So if you aren't subscribed to Discover Sci-Fi, make sure you go to discoversci-fi.com right now, put your email address in, and you'll get all of our weekly deals. Plus, you'll get 10 free books. So you can download them to your Kindle or your Nook or your iPad, anything you like. And this week we're spotlighting Daniel Aronson, who writes, I don't know how he does it, but he's got a new release, believe it or not. So
there's three of them.
Yeah. An Echo of Earth has just been launched. That's the Children of Earthrise book 3. And to celebrate, book 1, The Heirs of Earth, is 99 cents. So go pick those up. Dark Space Trilogy by Jasper T. Scott, books 1, 2, and 3. You can get all 3 for $1.99 on Amazon, US, and UK. Book number 1 is free. So you can go right now and get that loaded up onto your Kindle for absolutely nothing. And Free Fall by Felix R. Savage is 99 cents, which is an excellent book. Felix is a great guy, great writer. You should go get that, 99 cents. And Kevin McLaughlin, Ad Astra, is 99 cents. And that looks like a super interesting read as well. So thank you for your patience. And thank you that was a wonderful interview. I'm really excited to read your book. And I think everyone else, you have to go read these comments after, because people are just
okay. Well, definitely
a lot of love.
Good. I get beat up all day, So. My kids, no one, no respect there. No.
And people who want you to just write and not have any breaks. So.
All right, cool. Hey, good. I can work with that. So awesome.
Awesome. So next week, we don't know who we're interviewing yet, but one of the DSFers will be back on Thursday to have another one of these. So I hope you guys will all join in.
Or it could be me in disguise,
Or you in we do this again. Perfect. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much. Yeah.